You know that feeling when you realize you married the wrong person? I had that feeling. But not when he asked for a divorce. Not when he said I was too poor for him. Not even when he humiliated me in front of his friends. I had that feeling when he smiled, signing the divorce papers. Because in that moment, he thought he had won. Little did he know he was making the biggest mistake of his life. And me? I just smiled back. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old, and for 7 years I believed I was living a happy marriage. I met Brandon in college. He was ambitious, determined, full of plans. I was always more laid back, lived a simple life. Not out of necessity, but by choice. I wore basic clothes, lived in a small rented apartment, cooked at home, didn't have a new car. Brandon said he admired my simplicity, that it was refreshing that I wasn't materialistic like other women. Lies. He just liked it because it made him feel superior. When he proposed, he came with a requirement. Prenuptial agreement. "Honey, I have $100,000 saved up," he said, almost apologetically. "It's my grandfather's inheritance. I need to protect it." I signed without hesitation. I didn't care about his money. I had my own resources, my own plans. But I didn't tell him. He never asked, never cared to know. The first few years were good. Or I thought they were. Brandon got a job at a tech company. Started climbing the ladder. And as he climbed, I shrunk in his eyes. It started with small comments. "Don't you want to buy better clothes? Why don't you take better care of yourself? My boss always looks impeccable." Ah, the boss. Patricia. Successful executive, imported car, penthouse apartment. Everything I apparently wasn't. Brandon's transformation was gradual but consistent. He started coming home late. Then, not coming home at all. Important meeting. Business dinner. Company event. I wasn't stupid. I smelled the expensive perfume that wasn't mine. Noticed how he hid his phone. But the worst part wasn't the cheating itself. It was the humiliation. At a company party, I heard him talking with colleagues. He thought I was in the bathroom. Emily's nice, but she has no ambition, you know? Lives like we're still in college. A colleague laughed. "What about Patricia? I've heard some rumors." Brandon didn't deny it. Just smiled. Patricia is different. She understands success. Understands power. I stood frozen behind the door, processing. 7 years. 7 years next to a man who saw me as inferior. The next day, he came home with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold determination. "Emily, we need to talk." He sat on the couch, didn't even look me in the eyes. "This isn't working anymore. I've changed. You're still the same. I want a divorce." I took a deep breath. "Is it because of Patricia?" He had the audacity to look offended. "This isn't about her, it's about me. About what I deserve. Sorry, but you don't keep up with my lifestyle." "Your lifestyle," I repeated. "With your $100,000 so well protected by the prenup?" He smiled. Smiled. "Exactly. You won't see a penny. You signed the agreement, remember?" "I remember perfectly," I replied calmly. "Don't worry. I don't want anything of yours." The surprise on his face was almost comical. I think he expected tears, begging. "Great," he said, regaining composure. "My lawyer will be in touch." The divorce process was quick. No fighting over the house, furniture, nothing. I just wanted my freedom. On the day of signing the final papers, Brandon showed up with Patricia. Yes, her. At the lawyer's office. She wore an expensive suit, a watch that cost more than an economy car. She stood there, arm in arm with him, as if marking territory. Brandon signed the papers with that smug smile. No hard feelings? He asked, ironically. None, I replied, signing my name. Actually, I wish you both happiness. Patricia looked at me with pity. That kind of pity rich people have for humble folks. I left that office feeling relief, like I'd taken a weight off my shoulders. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, is that in 2015, when Bitcoin cost less than $300, I invested $50,000. $50,000 I inherited from my grandmother. Money that was always just mine, acquired before the marriage. At the time, everyone thought it was crazy. Virtual currency? That doesn't exist. Brandon never even found out. Never asked about my inheritance. Never cared about my finances. While he protected his $100,000 with tooth and nail, my Bitcoins appreciated to over $3 million. But I kept living simply. On purpose. Because money was never what defined me. Until I needed to use it to redefine myself. 2 months after the divorce, I moved to a better apartment. Nothing flashy, but comfortable. I invested part of the money in courses, in myself. Got an online MBA, learned languages, traveled. For the first time in years, I lived for me. And you know what's funny? The more I flourished, the more Brandon withered. 3 months after the divorce, he was fired. Apparently, a relationship between boss and subordinate violated company policy. When the board found out about him and Patricia, both were let go. But Patricia's termination was a mutual agreement with generous severance. His? For cause, no benefits. A month after that, I saw on social media that Patricia was in Paris, alone. She broke up with him, of course. Without money, without status, Brandon had nothing left to offer her. And the penthouse apartment he had rented to impress her had to move out. Went back to a place smaller than our old one. Meanwhile, I invested in a friend who had a small online store. We became partners. The business took off. Not because of the money I invested, but because I finally had time and energy to dedicate to what I loved, business strategy. The store grew. We opened a physical location, then a franchise. 6 months after the divorce, I was financially independent not just because of Bitcoin, but through my own work. It was on an ordinary Thursday that my life changed again. After a long day of meetings, I walked into a bar near the office. Just wanted some wine and silence. I sat at the counter. Next to me, a man around 35, typing frantically on his laptop. Accidentally, I knocked over my purse. He helped pick things up. Rough day? He asked, smiling. You could say that, I replied. Same here, he said, pointing to the laptop. Trying to finish a presentation for investors tomorrow. We started talking. His name was David. He had an online education startup. He didn't have that arrogance I'd learned to recognize. He was passionate about his work, but humble, curious, interested in listening. We talked for 3 hours. About business, about life, about dreams. At the end of the night, he asked for my number. I don't usually do this, but I'd like to see you again, without a laptop this time. I smiled. I'd like that too. The following months were magical. David wasn't impressed by money. He was happy when he found out about my business, but happy for me, not for the status it brought. He met my family. I met his. We traveled together, planned together. 1 year after the divorce, David proposed. No prenup, no protections, just trust. I want to build a life with you, he said. A real life, together. I got married again. Not in a big party, though I could, but in a small, beautiful ceremony with the people we love. And you know what was best? I got married because I wanted to, because I loved, because I chose to. Not out of fear of being alone, not from pressure, not from dependency, from true love. I ran into Brandon by chance, 6 months after my second wedding. I was at a coffee shop, waiting for David. Brandon walked in. He looked different. Simpler clothes, tired demeanor, dark circles under his eyes. He saw me, froze. I could have looked away, pretended I didn't see him, but I waved, politely. He approached, hesitant. Emily, you look good, he said, and it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I am, I replied sincerely. And you? He shrugged. Could be better. Still looking for a job. After all that mess. Uncomfortable silence. Look, he started, about the way things ended. I was an idiot. You were, I agreed. Not with anger, with fact. You deserved better, he continued. And I threw away something real for something that was an illusion. I was about to respond when David walked into the coffee shop. Tall, easy smile, greeted me with a kiss. Honey, sorry I'm late. The meeting ran long, he said. Then he noticed Brandon. Hi, I'm David. Brandon, my ex replied, shaking his hand. Ex-husband. Ah, David said awkwardly, looked at me. It's okay, I said. Brandon was just leaving. Brandon got the hint, waved and left. David looked at me, concerned. Are you okay? I am, I replied. And it was true. I've never been better. You know what I learned from all this? That the best revenge isn't showing off your money, isn't rubbing it in the face of those who hurt you. The best revenge is living well. It's rebuilding. It's flourishing. It's choosing happiness every day. Brandon judged me by appearances, thought simplicity meant weakness, that humility was lack of ambition. But I always had strength, always had resources. I just didn't need to prove anything to anyone, until I needed to prove it to myself. Today, I run a thriving business, have a marriage based on respect and true love, live the life I choose. Brandon? I don't wish him harm. Honestly. I just hope he learns that a person's worth isn't measured by a bank statement, and that sometimes the poorest person in the room is the richest in all the ways that truly matter.